Okay, Sarah, do you want me to get started?
The live stream isn't quite up yet.
Perfect, that's fine.
Really slow today.
Maybe we'll wait a little bit, a minute or so. And if we could do introductions in the beginning, just to make it easier for everybody that, so we can see everybody and make sure I don't forget anybody on the roll call.
Okay, perfect. Are we good to go, Krista?
No, it keeps sticking. I am recording though, so I can always upload it to YouTube when we're finished too. So you can go ahead and start. I think I'll just do that. If the live stream happens to start, then I can always upload it later.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, we'll get started today for the CJCC data work group. It's about 12 o'clock. My name's Katie Shalley. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'll just ask that each participant name themselves for the roll call. So whoever wants to go next can start.
I am Megan. I'm with Menominee Police Department. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm Garrett Bunkelman, probation and parole out of Menominee. I'll be taking Brad's position here.
Okay.
Just gonna pop in for a second. Sarah, can you click the record on the bottom of your screen on your end too, so we have it recording in two spots in case I get kicked out for some reason, then we'll have two of them.
You bet.
Thank you. We're good on my end, just not live streaming.
Okay, if the next participant wants to do their name for the roll call.
Hannah with the Duncan Sheriff's Office.
And I think we just have one more, Sandy Frigo. I'm not sure if she can hear us, but maybe I'll move this along. That'd be a little bit more helpful for Sarah.
Okay, I think we've got everybody that is on. And if we do have anybody join us, we'll just introduce them as they join in.
Perfect. Okay, number 3, it's the approval of the minutes, July 21st. Can I get a motion to approve the meetings minutes? Anybody?
I'll motion to approve the
We have to
minutes.
jump all at once if they don't want to, I guess.
And I would just add, we have a correction. We have a correction to make to add Megan to our roll call from last meeting. She was there.
Does anybody want to second the minutes?
Can somebody second the minutes?
Did you hear me motion to approve them?
I heard you motion, I didn't hear a second.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that counted or if I needed a second. I don't know. I'm not very good at this yet.
That's okay.
If you guys can hear me.
Is a second from Hannah?
Yeah, I can't figure out how to use my video today.
Okay, yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by saying nay. Okay, the meeting's minutes are going to be corrected as Sarah stated, and they will be passed. Item number 5 on the agenda is the staff report.
All right. And I'm Sarah Benedict. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I think most of you know me. I'm just glad to have everybody on board here. A little bit challenging with the virtual meetings, but we'll kind of get the hang of it as we kind of proceed moving forward. So I just want to give some highlights. We did have our CJCC meeting last week. So we did have a chance to go over the 10-year trends presentation that this group helped put together. So we had some probably 20 minutes or so of data. So it was just a nice chance to get that information updated. That is one of our work group goals to accomplish. So I'm pleased to say that we were able to accomplish that. As far as the CJCC work groups, so we have a number of different work groups. We're starting to get those kind of rejuvenated at this point. Data work group that we're taking part in today, that's been moving ahead for several months. Now we're just starting to get some of the other work groups up and running. And we're going to take a look at our goals and objectives that we set out at the beginning of the year to see what's feasible to accomplish this year and what we might have to put on hold for a little while. As far as this group's going, we really are on track to meet our goals and activities for the year. So that's just fantastic. And then I think that's it for my staff report, unless there's questions.
Item number 5 is the Center for Policing Equity. Now let's talk to that item.
Okay, so this is an item that came to us from our evidence-based decision-making work group. That group is chaired by Chief Atkinson with Menominee Police. And he's going to be bringing in this Center for Policing Equity group into, invited them to take part in kind of a data exploration with Menominee Police. I think the intention is to kind of reach out to other agencies, law enforcement agencies, to see if they're interested in also participating. And the request from our EBDM work group is for this group to consider, as we learn more and understand some of the data requests, that we're able to support some of those requests for information. This is a nonprofit group that kind of comes in and just helps agencies take a look at their data and to see what their data can tell them. So it's an effort with transparency, and we certainly want to look at some of those that disproportionate minority contacts that we have. So it's really just a chance to get an outside agency to take a look, give some constructive feedback and some recommendations kind of based on the data. So I don't have a whole lot of detailed information at this point, but as we kind of learn more about the timeline and the data that they're going to be looking at, I'll connect back with the work group for that information and to see how we can support that effort with Menominee Police. And I guess, Megan, I don't know if you have anything additional to add, just as a MPD rep. I don't think Chief Atkinson is on the line with us today. And I don't mean just to throw you on there, Megan, but I just wanted to offer just a chance if you do have any additional information.
I don't on the policing equity portion of that. We're still kind of, from what I gather, in kind of the early steps of it. But I do know from kind of a record standpoint, the Bureau of Statistics, they have a much longer name, but they compile the state NIBRS data. They are pushing out a website where people can go and see the different types of calls, and they have a very similar goal of kind of that transparency, because we do collect data on like hate crimes or bias motivated crimes, things like that, victim information, not necessarily information, but their, oh my goodness, race, sex, those sort of things. So just as another point of interest, there is somewhere else that we can also gain some data if anybody ever asks you guys. That is a resource that's out there. But as far as like the policing equity stuff, I don't have a whole lot for you. I apologize.
That was helpful. Thank you, Megan.
Okay,
All right, back to you, Katie.
perfect. Item number 6, the monthly dashboards for June and July of 2020.
Okay, so the June dashboard draft was sent out with the packet, and then the July is hot off the press this morning. So I'll pull those up on my screen so we can briefly talk through those. So here we go. Let's start with June. Okay. So hopefully you can all see, each of us have a different kind of layout on our screen. Oh, it looks like Chris just joined us. I'll jot her down, Chris Corpola. So you may need to adjust your kind of Zoom display for better layout, but let me see how I do here. Okay, looking at June and July, I guess it is different month to month. So let me start with June. So June, we started to see our average daily population in the jail start to go back up. Still well below what it would typically be in a typical June. But our numbers overall, the bookings have started to edge up in June, and they're even higher in July. Of note, I think, is the pre-trial hold on the snapshot. It appears that we have more folks that are in that pre-trial stage that are being held in jail, at least currently. Proxies have been low, but we did reinforce at our EBDM meeting the importance of the proxy protocol, and we are looking to do some training, some kind of foundational training with our law enforcement agencies on the proxy. That information's helpful to us driving the dashboard, but it's also helpful for the pre-charge diversion referral process as well. No surprises on the proxy data. We tend to see that alcohol and other drug offenses and disorderly conducts and theft to be the main drivers of that criminal activity. On the program participation, overall the numbers, referrals have been lower in all the different programs, and there has been less people beginning the various programs in June and July. Treatment court in June and family treatment court in July has seen some terminations, so those will be reflected. It's been a really hard time for a lot of our participants in the various programs, the social isolation and limited access to treatment. So we're kind of seeing those repercussions on the programs. Looking at the assessment protocol, there wasn't much going on for the assessment piece in June or July. That has resumed in August, so we'll start to see those numbers come up. We're doing some virtual assessments to really try to capture that, the population that is booked and held for a court appearance. The numbers for reentry program has also been kind of stagnant. That program, folks typically start in at the jail with the assessment process, developing a transition plan, and then in various jail-based programs. the programs were just starting to kind of get going again in June and July. But we did have a report from our reentry coordinator, the jail program director, that about 30% of the jail population that are in jail right now are taking part in the program. So that's just good representation. With the jail numbers down, there's just not a whole lot of new folks coming in to take part in the programs. I'm going to switch over to the July dashboard just so we can take a look at that. Whoop, let me do it again. There we go, July. Looking at July, as I mentioned, just our numbers started ticking up even more in July. So we were up to the average population of 70, much closer to that average. Our bookings are still about half of what they would typically be in a July. And then we're seeing just the racial kind of disparities with those that are being booked and held. Then also we continue to see that pretrial kind of population be a little bit larger than it would typically be in a month. Proxies are starting to increase a little bit, so that's good. Getting just more contacts with law enforcement out there and following the request to fill out the proxy. Numbers, again, as I mentioned, just the numbers, just, you know, a couple enrollments each for the pre-charge diversion program and the top program. We did have one error over here I need to just double check. I don't think we had a graduate in July. I think that was June. But some terminations, as I mentioned, in the different programs. Those are largely due to this really disengagement in the program or new criminal charges that occurred. We are starting to see our failure to appear rate kind of edge back up, where for a little while it seemed like there were more folks actually showing up for the court appearances by phone or Zoom, but those numbers have started to edge up a little bit, kind of showing that, and not a whole lot of difference between those that get the text message and those that don't. As mentioned, the reentry protocol was still on hold in July, so there's not much to report there. Assessments for the programs have been going, and that's been virtual and going quite well. And then we had a couple more in the program in July, just as our jail numbers start to go back up, and they're continuing to be assessed. And then have the plans, so that helps us really look at what the needs are of the population that we serve in the reentry program. So that's the nutshell of the dashboards. Is there any questions at this point?
I don't know if this is a question or a so an observation, or to see if my perception is correct. So it's interesting looking at those jail booking and average daily population numbers, because so our bookings are about half. So there's only about half the people that were entering the jail now. But I mean, is it a reasonable conclusion to say more people that are getting booked are getting held? Because our average jail population numbers continue to eke up. You know, so you had so I'm just looking at July of 2019, July 2018, you have 132 people booking an average daily census of 106, and then 185, an average daily census of 87. But now you only have 93 people being booked, but you have 73 people in jail. Seems like, I guess I would make the argument that if my perception of that is correct, or my thinking of that is correct, that the kinds of offenses, or maybe the seriousness of the offenses, or something would be like driving that.
Right, Chris. I can connect with Sergeant Ormson and kind of follow up on that to see what might be going on there. We also, the DOC numbers also reflect our contract for the leased beds. And those are in the booking numbers, so those folks would be also included in that, but they're basically booked in once and then held until they transport out. So yeah, we'll follow up with Sergeant Ormson to see if he can provide some clarity on that.
Hey, Sarah. So from the law enforcement standpoint, I know a lot of what the officers have been told, and I think it's still kind of going on, is really the jail will only take the people with more serious offenses right now, because they are trying to keep that lower. And so a lot of these people, I think you're right, Chris. I think they are being held because of the seriousness of the offense. Just because like a simple disorderly or other things are not necessarily we're not necessarily bringing them to jail just because of trying to keep those numbers in the jail fairly low. At least that's my understanding from like what the law enforcement officers have been told. But I would think the jail would have a little bit more information on what their specific guidelines and policies are for that. I just know that we've been given kind of the directive to keep arresting to a minimum, if you will. Just trying to keep the jail population lower to prevent any possible outbreaks or anything like that.
And that makes sense. Also with our pretrial numbers kind of edging up to that, it's just kind of consistent. So yeah, interesting observations.
Yeah, I would say that's correct as well. They're pretty much more the serious crimes that are individuals on the jail list, and they're probably getting more of a cash bond versus a signature bond and booked out and released right away too. Item number 7 is our OWI data, a deeper dive.
Sarah, check the button on your headset.
Like hitting buttons here.
We can hear you now.
I'll just say for the record, that's the worst design flaw of
It really is.
Is that goofy thing.
Yeah. Push it again, Sarah. If it's flashing, it means it's muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So data dive. So the last time we met, we went through our initial kind of look through the 2019 OWI data. And then we had some follow-up questions. And largely, those follow-up questions were related to the mapping, really seeing where the offenses happened, the time of day that they occurred, correlation of time and age, correlation of time, age, and then the blood alcohol levels. We also had some follow-up questions on the OWI with passengers in the car. So unfortunately that this data set is going to take quite a bit longer to crunch than I allotted for. We have a lot of data to go through. Here's one where this is the age and the time, and as you can see, the data needs to be grouped in a different format in order to make sense out of it in a chart. So I'm still kind of working through that data, but I do want to ask if there's additional questions that the group may have that I can research with this data set that we have, in addition to what I just mentioned.
I think that this person needs to see a cardiologist.
Right, yes, it just, it takes some time to actually work through this data to make it a little bit more, easy to understand. So I'm going to be working through that and then actually plotting on a map where some of these offenses occurred. So that's going to take some time. We did kind of share with the executive group, there is interest in continuing to look at our OWI data. We tend to see them as kind of some of the most frequent offenses that we have. They take a lot of resources as we've talked about in this work group. So we do kind of have the marching orders from the executive to continue to dig into the data to try to make sense of it. And then as we look at kind of those next steps, or what does that data tell us as far as interventions may be concerned down the road. But we have put in, Katie's put in a significant amount of time really pulling that data together, so we have a nice data set to continue to really drill down into so we can make some of those patterns and assumptions based on what we see here in our community.
Okay, so we can move on. Is that all that you had, Sarah, for that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Move to number 8, the Recidivism Project, and next steps for that.
All right, so this is one of our goals for the year, and not just this year, but every year, is to kind of look at our different programs to see really not just the number of people that are going in and out of the programs, but the actual outcomes of the programs. So we have, just for illustration here, I'm going to pull up, let's see, oh, I may have already closed it. No, let me pull up this one. So I want to show you the data that we have and what I'm looking at here. So this is the shared data screen that we've got a Google shared document that we've all been kind of chipping in and using to track participants, important dates and data elements, and then outcomes, the CCAP. We were trying to do a consistent approach in how we're kind of looking up the information. So I do want to, I gotta move this thing here. I'll get that out of here. Just want to show you some of the power or the spreadsheets here. I'm gonna go over to the treatment court. So we do have some data elements that are not completed, and I think we probably want to kind of, I guess I'll probably tell you in a little bit some of the stuff that I think that we need to do next. But initially what we wanted to start with was the folks that are in, that have graduated the programs. So we have all the CCAP information on program graduates. We don't on those that are terminated. So for some of our next steps, we did want to look at some of those terminated as a potential comparison group. But we do have all the data on the graduates. So I'm going to be kind of presenting what we have on the graduates with the different programs. I do want to note that I have highlighted in yellow some areas that we need to find more information. So it looks like a lot of this CCAP information was researched in late last year, and it needs to be kind of looked at. So for some of these, we are at the 3-year kind of point for some of these participants. So that is the treatment court. We have the treatment opportunity program. This one, the terminated and the graduated, we tend to have the full data set, so that's good. There are a couple of outliers that we need to get a little bit more information in order to do that accurate CCAP search. So I'll be connecting with program staff on that. Not a whole lot missing, but I think one of the goals is we've really set this up nicely, so we need to almost really on a monthly basis to kind of go in there and update what we can. Now I'm going to go and show you the pre-charge diversion program. This one probably has the most participants and fairly well populated with information. So there's just been a couple of fields that look like we needed to kind of get more information, and it's really kind of getting in that kind of that follow-up to see, right, there may have been charges, but the cases were still pending. So we're kind of looking for that outcome or the 3-year mark. So this is kind of the data set that I used. I made a copy of it because I am sorting, and I didn't want the data to be corrupted if I accidentally kind of did something that I shouldn't do. But this really is the more up-to-date spreadsheet that I'll connect with our program people to continue updating. I also have a program assistant in my office that I'll probably get her working on doing some of the CCAP research, Katie, just because it's just a little bit here and there versus kind of lock, stock, and barrel like a lot of your staff have already done. So that's the data set. Now I'm going to switch over and show you the analysis piece. So just kind of know that the analysis is based on that incomplete data. So this is kind of the best guess at right now, but it would slightly change, not a whole lot, once we get the additional data set in. But I'm going to start with the pre-charge diversion program. So really looked at the cohort year being the discharge year. So the year that folks ended the program, and whether that was a successful discharge or not. So for example, in 2016, we had 44 successfully discharged out of a total of 62 that were discharged from the program. The pre-charge diversion is our kind of our smaller, or excuse me, not smaller, it's a larger program. It has the most participants, but it's the shortest duration, 6-month program. So really calculated for each year, looking at the number of people that graduated the program of the total that ended in that year, and we get completion rates. And then we looked at 1 year post-program just for the graduates of the different programs. So we see, you know, with our pre-charge diversion, it's about a 7% average recidivism rate. So that's really fantastic. And then when we look at our 3-year point in time, a lot less folks, but we're still seeing, you know, 18% recidivism. So I think it's, you know, fairly strong numbers there to support the efficacy of the pre-charge diversion program when nearly 74% of the people complete it, and then we see less than 10% of those people back in our criminal justice system. That's definitely a success. That pre-charge diversion program, as a reminder, is that first-time offender. Not that they're all low risk, but the kind of the theory is, you know, if folks are low risk, they kind of learn their lesson and move on. And I think that's kind of bore out in the data here with the graduates anyways.
And Sarah, can I just ask, so when at year 1, there were 14 of 197 that had recidivism, and then in year 3, there were 8, because only 44 people had gotten to year 3. Is
Correct.
That what that is?
Yep.
And So would that include those from year one?
Yep.
That
Yep.
went on
Yep.
kind of the next year. So they're kind of like, in a sense, like double counted. Each catchment year, they're in the next group if they got that far.
Right.
Got
Yes. Yes. Looking at our top programs, so this is the Treatment Opportunity Program. Same kind of formula here. We looked at the number that have completed successfully out of the total number that were discharged. So the numbers here, about 56% actually complete the program. The number increases every year. Our pre-charge diversion program, I'll kind of do this one. This is that 6 to 9 to 12 month post-charge program. Started in 2007. So this takes longer to get through the program. So we're going to have a kind of a time difference between when we actually start to see them graduate. For all the programs, it's a lot easier, quicker to be discharged or terminated from the program than to actually complete it successfully. So sometimes the numbers look upside down in those initial years. But you know, overall, with our top program, we see that 82% of the graduates had no new charges 1 year post-program. That's compared to our 93% on the pre-charge diversion program. So again, those are just really strong numbers showing that at least at that 1 year point post-program, that we're saving a lot of resources of those folks coming into our system, and then essentially not coming back to our system. When we look at the 1 year, we're about 18% recidivism rate for our top program. And then when we look at the 3 year recidivism and the 5 year, we're just not quite there yet. With the program starting in 2017. So at the beginning of next year, once we get done with 2020, we'll be able to do our 3 year recidivism rates for that first partial year, 2017. But again, I think you know, even though the numbers are small and we can't kind of garner a whole lot out of it, it is showing some positive effects overall. Looking at our treatment court, so this is the longer program, 12, 18, or 24 months. Initially, it was 12 months in the early years, 12 to 18 months, and we have subsequently kind of extended that. So at this point, it's pretty much 18 to 24 month program. This is a high need, high risk offenders. So this is just a more challenging cohort to begin with. So this started 2008. Looking at the graduates since that time, we have about 79% had no new charges 1 year post-program. So again, a little bit less than our other two programs there, but it makes sense when we think about the target population for that program, and also just the level of needs that this group would have. We see that about the completion rate's about 51%, so it is a difficult program for folks to fully get through. It is slightly, I think, below average. Our national average is about 59% when it comes to completion rate, successful completion rate, so a little bit lower there. Looking at our 1 year recidivism, so we're at about a 21% average. We have 8 of 39 that had a new offense by that 1 year mark. So the national average is about 16%. So we're a little bit higher than the national average for that recidivism rate. And then when we're looking at 3 year recidivism, we jumped to about 27% because we got a much smaller pool of folks. National rates, we don't have a whole lot at the 3 year mark. kind of for benchmarks, they give us the 2-year benchmark for the national average would be at about 28%. So probably not too far off there. And then, you know, for a lot of the benchmarks, they don't even look at 5-year recidivism because a lot of the benefits can wear off and there's a lot of other variables. So I don't have that national benchmark to look at, but we are at about a 29% average. Kind of based on just the timing right now. So much tougher program to get through, but we are seeing that, you know, the majority, nearly 80% of those that are in that program do not come back 1 year post-program. And that doesn't even kind of capture the harm reduction of while they're in that program for that 18 to 24 month and with that community supervision and intensive services. So that is kind of where I'm at as far as the recidivism study right now. Like I mentioned, I think the next steps are to go back and really shore up those few gaps in the data that we have. For me to connect with Deanna Arntzen out of the DA's office and then Janae Brantner for these programs anyways, to make sure that we're all on the same page and really understand this, you know, that we're consistent in our numbers and what we're going to be showing the CJCC in November. So we got a couple of months to continue working on it. We also have other programs to look at. So we also have the reentry program. We have the domestic violence program that's up and running. So we also want to kind of look at some of that information. Might be too early with some of those programs just up and starting, but we do have some program graduates to look at. So now I'm going to open it up to questions that the group may have.
So I do have a question regarding recidivism. How are we defining that? Is that the same crime or any involvement whatsoever in the criminal justice system?
So really good question. So we defined recidivism as having a new criminal, well, we separated charge and offense. So I really looked at charge at this point. Did they come back into our system with a new criminal charge? Not necessarily the same charge, but in a criminal offense.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's impressive data then.
So I think we've talked about this before, but I'm wondering if we want to brainstorm a little bit about like what could be our comparison. Like, is there a group that would make a natural, maybe not to each of the categories, because it sort of starts with the pre-charged sort of lesser low-level offenses, kind of works its way up. But is there a data group that we could look at of kind of, in a sense, sort of our control group, although I realize that's a fancy word for what it would really be, but.
In our spreadsheet, we have collected those that were referred and never started. So that could be a potential comparison group. And then we do have that terminated. It's not good kind of science to use that terminated group, but that as a comparison, but I think it still would be interesting to look at that terminated group because you could still see program benefits in participation, even though they weren't successfully in completing the full program. But then we could also go out and look at potentially just other kind of national or meta studies kind of showing some of the, that's what I got for our treatment court comparisons as far as recidivism. Those are through some meta studies.
Like, and like, I mean, could we, I don't know even in how this would happen, but like, could we just pull, okay, so we know who is represented in this group. Could we pull, I don't know, 50 other names, whatever, of just people who offenders within our system. I'm sure it needs to be better defined than that, but I'm just saying 50 people who, and then just look at it. We know that these are people that had opportunity for programming. And it isn't that somebody else didn't have any opportunity for programming, because they might have done other things, but they weren't these programs. So comparing a group that did nothing related to our services versus the group that did something, I guess is what I'm kind of trying to think about. And maybe
Yes.
that's too vague. I don't know.
So maybe that is our referred group that declined to participate. And I can just show you that briefly. So I'm still sharing my screen, I think.
Yes.
Let me try it again. Yeah, for example, our pre-charge. We've got a lot of folks in the program. So here we got referred. We've got a whole, we probably have 50 people there at least.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, they did not take part in the program.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a potential starting point for a comparison group, at least for that program.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see. Yep, we have the similar with our top as well.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting. Hopefully it shows something compelling. Not that the results are exactly the same, but in that case, we just have to retire.
So yeah, I think that's a good recommendation as far as once we get this stuff kind of sealed up, and then really start to dig into that comparison group, because I think that's an important kind of message in this.
Yeah, it's kind of that, like, these people did better than what?
Right. And I think we need that benchmark to help kind of show that the programming was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, do you want me to help with looking up some of those names then and like start working through the referred individuals, or?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay, because I was like, I know there's a lot of referreds, because I was very thankful every time I seen a referred name and I didn't look it up, but
And maybe I mean, do we want to do the same amount, or do we just want to do like 50 of them, or?
We could just do them all, otherwise we'll question what the other ones did.
Yeah, what we were doing.
So let's do them all. Then we have it, I suppose.
Great.
Okay. But we'll start working on that then. I don't have anything else to talk about for that topic. I don't know if anybody else does, or any questions. I guess once we get all the numbers, we'll have to see what it looks like and go from there.
I just commend you guys, because that's a big undertaking, and I think so when we get sort of the continual push, I'll just say, or nudge to say, okay, so you're doing all this, but what does it matter? I think that is maybe not like totally randomized control study kind of research data, but I think it's data that's understandable to a layman around this is what we see based on the sort of hard and fast facts in our system. And so that took a lot of work, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it took a lot of work across a lot of different agencies, so I just appreciate everybody's help on working on that and helping form up the project, and more work to come.
Yes, most definitely. It looks like the next thing is just to discuss our next meeting date on the agenda. We've moved quite along.
Katie, did you have anything in mind, or would you like for us to doodle, or?
You could just do a doodle, or otherwise, I mean, these Tuesdays at noon work well for me. I don't know if they work well for everybody else, but I mean.
Mm-hmm. They seem to.
Do we want to just pick like September 22nd at noon? Does that work for everybody's calendar?
The first day of autumn. Yeah, it works for me.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I see a thumbs up from Brenna. Great.
Okay. Well, other than that, I think we're adjourned. I don't think we have anything else to discuss, so we'll schedule the next meeting for September 22nd at noon, and everybody else have a good rest of your day, and we'll hopefully get some more data crunching done, and we'll look at it next month again.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you. Bye.